It started as a quiet evening at a small town bar, just two brothers, laughing after a long week of service. But within minutes, their smiles faded as the room's mood shifted. Whispers turned to stares. The sound of boots scraped against the floor, and a voice cold as metal demanded they stand. No one cared that they wore honor beneath their skin, only the color of it. What happened next would turn a routine night into a national headline, because these weren't just any men. One was a captain, the other a Navy SEAL commander. So why did no one see who they really were until it was too late? But first, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment below from which city you are watching this video. Marcus and Malik Turner were twins bound by more than blood. They were brothers in arms, molded by discipline, duty, and the unspoken bond of service. Growing up in a tough Atlanta neighborhood, they had learned early that respect wasn't given, it was earned. Marcus, the older by minutes, had risen through the ranks to become a respected Navy captain. Malik, quieter but fiercely determined, had carved his own path as a Navy SEAL commander, the kind of man who led missions the world would never hear about. Off duty, though, they were just two men trying to live normally, to blend in for once. That night, they stopped by a local bar after a long week of training, a place filled with laughter, sports on TV, and the faint smell of fried food and old wood. For them, it was supposed to be a simple escape, a rare night where they didn't have to lead anyone or prove anything. But the world outside their uniforms wasn't always kind. Beneath the casual chatter, they could sense something different in the air, that slow, familiar shift when eyes start to linger too long, when smiles turn stiff and whispers sharpen. They'd seen it before. They'd felt it before. But never here, never when they just wanted to be human. What they didn't know was that before the night was over, their calm would be shattered, their dignity tested, and the very meaning of serve and protect would be turned upside down. At first, it was subtle, the kind of thing Marcus and Malik had learned to brush off over the years. The bartender's hesitation before taking their order. The glances exchanged between a group of men at the counter. A laugh that carried too long, just loud enough to sting. Marcus had felt it before, that silent judgment that followed him into stores, restaurants, even airports. But he'd never gotten used to it. He leaned toward Malik, quietly saying, "Let it go. We're just here to relax." Malik nodded, but his jaw was tight. It wasn't easy for him to let it go. Not when they both dedicated their lives to a country that didn't always see them as its own. Minutes later, the laughter stopped. Two police officers walked through the door, casual at first, but with that slow, assessing look that said they weren't there for a drink. The bartender pointed subtly in the twins' direction. Marcus caught it. His chest tightened. Malik noticed too, sitting a little straighter. The officers approached their table. The music seemed to fade as one of them said something about a disturbance, about matching a description. The words were familiar, tired excuses in a world where being black was often enough to fit any description. Marcus tried to stay calm. "We haven't done anything wrong," he said evenly. But the officer's smirk said he didn't care. Malik's hands rested on the table, open and visible, just as they'd been trained. Years of tactical control told him to de-escalate. Years of lived experience told him it might not matter. The crowd grew quiet. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "What did they do?" No one asked why the officers didn't ask for IDs first. No one questioned why they went straight for intimidation. The posture, the hand resting near a holstered weapon, the subtle sneer that dared them to react. Malik's pulse hammered. His instincts screamed to stand, to assert control, the way he would on any mission. But this wasn't a battlefield, it was a trap. He saw the way one officer's thumb brushed his holster. Marcus caught the movement too. "Officer," Marcus said slowly, "I suggest you think carefully about what you're doing." The man scoffed. "Is that a threat?" Malik could feel the room shrink. He saw his brother's restraint, saw the vein in his temple tighten, and knew they were one word away from disaster. The second officer moved closer. "Stand up. Both of you." Marcus hesitated, hands visible. Malik followed. Chairs scraped. The bar fell silent. All eyes were on them now, two men who had commanded respect on battlefields being treated like criminals in their own country. "Hands where I can see them," the officer barked. Marcus looked him straight in the eye, not with defiance, but with something deeper, disappointment. He could have said it then, could have revealed everything, ended it instantly. But something in him wanted them to show the world who they really were first. Then came the flash of red and blue outside, backup arriving for a crime that didn't exist. The weight of every injustice they'd ever faced hung in the air like smoke. Malik's voice was low, steady, almost haunting. You have no idea who you're talking to. And in that moment everyone, officers, onlookers, even the bartender, realized something was about to change. But none of them were ready for how. The air inside the bar turned electric, every breath heavy with tension, every second stretching thin. Marcus stood motionless, his heart steady, but his mind racing. Malik's gaze flicked between the officers, calculating, measuring the danger, like he would in combat. Yet this wasn't a foreign battlefield. This was home, and the enemy wore badges meant to protect them. One officer stepped forward, his voice sharp, dripping with arrogance. Don't make this harder than it has to be. His hand gripped Marcus's arm, twisting with unnecessary force. The crowd flinched. Malik moved instinctively, a subtle step forward, the kind that could have ended a firefight before it began. Back up, the second officer barked, his hand flying to his weapon. The room gasped. Phones rose higher. Every lens caught the trembling moment between control and chaos. Marcus's patience snapped, not in anger but in resolve. You've made your mistake, he said quietly. Then, with deliberate calm, he reached into his jacket and placed something on the table, a sleek, silver badge glinting under the dim bar light. The officer froze. His eyes darted down. What's that? He stammered. Malik followed, pulling out his own identification, darker, heavier, stamped with the unmistakable insignia of the U.S. Navy SEALs. Silence swallowed the room whole. The weight of truth hit like a thunderclap. The same hands that had saved lives, defended freedom, and carried brothers off the battlefield were now being treated as threats in their own country. Marcus spoke, voice steady but filled with quiet fire. You wanted to see ID. Now look closely. The men you're threatening are the ones who protect you. The color drained from the officer's face. His grip loosened. The crowd whispered, some in shock, others in shame. Malik's eyes never left the man who'd drawn his weapon, his stare saying everything words couldn't. In that instant, the balance of power shifted, the hunters realizing they had cornered lions. But even as the officers backed away, the damage was done. Respect could be shown, but dignity once stripped never came back the same. And the twins knew this was far from over. The bar emptied slowly that night, the same people who had watched in silence now avoiding the twins' eyes as they passed. The officers muttered forced apologies, their voices trembling with guilt and embarrassment. Marcus accepted them with the calm of a man who'd seen too much to be surprised. Malik, though, stood motionless, staring at the flashing lights outside as they faded into the dark. They didn't argue. They didn't shout. They didn't have to. The truth had spoken louder than any words ever could. Yet beneath the surface, something heavy lingered, not victory, but exhaustion. Because they both knew this moment wasn't an exception. It was a reflection. For every Marcus and Malik who could flash a badge or reveal a title, there were countless others who never got the chance, voices silenced before the world could know their worth. The uniforms they wore had protected them in war zones, but not in the country they served. That realization burned deeper than any wound. Weeks later, the video of that night would spread online, millions of views, debates, apologies, outrage. Strangers called them heroes, symbols of resilience. But Marcus and Malik didn't want fame. They wanted understanding. They wanted a world where respect wasn't earned through rank, but through humanity. As they stood outside that same bar weeks later, Marcus looked at his brother and said quietly, "We fight for this country, maybe now. It's time we fight for its heart." Because sometimes the real battlefield isn't oceans away. It's in the places we least expect, in the moments we stay silent when we should speak. So ask yourself, how many more men and women have to prove their worth before being treated as equal? And when that moment comes again, will you look away or will you stand?